It was raining the whole day in Calicut with winds reaching up to 70 knots. The visibility was less than 2,000 meters and the cumulonimbus clouds were all around the airport. A Boeing 737 carried out a missed approach from runway 28 after the crew was unable to see the runway. Instead of taking a full 360-degree go-around, the captain decided to land on runway 10 from the opposite side. The aircraft landed long with an alarming extended float period, touching down at 4,438 feet down a wet runway. The plane exited the runway at a ground speed of 84.5 knots, overshot the runway in safety area, and plummeted down the tabletop runway.
النداء الأخير لطائرة طيران
7 August 2020. Dubai International Airport, United Arab Emirates. Air India Express was operating its regular international flight to Calicut International Airport, Kerala, India. On board the flight was 184 passengers and 6 crew members. The flight was operated under Vande Bharat mission to repatriate passengers from Dubai who were stranded due to the closure of international flight operations because of the COVID-19 pandemic. The crew consisted of Captain Deepak Sathe, 59. He had an experience of 10,848 flight hours, including 6,662 hours as commander. In Boeing 737-800, his experience was 4,612 hours. Sathe had landed successfully at Calicut Airport at least 27 times, including more than 10 times in 2020. The first officer was Akhilesh Kumar, 32. He had an experience of 1,989 flight hours, including 1,723 hours on the Boeing 737. The aircraft was specially designed for a short-field performance package that allows operators to fly increased payload in and out of airports with runways less than 5,000 feet long. It first flew on 15 November 2006 and was operated by Air India since then. The plane started its takeoff roll from runway 30 right for its destination Calicut, India, as its scheduled arrival time of 1940. The flight was uneventful until the commencement of the first approach for landing in Calicut. The co-pilot was the pilot monitoring. He obtained the weather of Calicut and alternate airfields. The departure fuel from Dubai was uplifted for Tiruchirappalli, which was the farthest alternate airfield. However, the latest weather update showed that even the closer airfields to Calicut like Cochin and Coimbatore had suitable weather. Chennai Upper Area Control transmitted Calicut airfield weather details to Flight 1344 as the runway in use 28, visibility of 1,500 meters in moderate thunderstorm and rain with surface winds of 270 degrees at 14 knots. The visibility minima required for the ILS approach for both runways in Calicut was 1,300 meters. The crew requested descent. Chennai Upper Area Control cleared the aircraft for descending to flight level 260 and handed over the flight to Cochin Lower Area Control. Later, the aircraft was cleared for descending to flight level 120 by Cochin Lower Area Control and came in contact with Calicut ATC, who cleared the aircraft to descend 7,000 feet. Calicut Airfield was under two concurrent aerodrome warnings at this time. The first warning was for TSRA and the second warning was for wind speed exceeding 70 knots. Due to these two warnings, a weather standby was declared by DATCO and the crash fire tenders were specially positioned at predetermined points along the runway. The aircraft was cleared for descending to 3,600 feet. Then it was cleared for ILS approach to runway 28. After following the published procedure, the flight was established on the localizer for runway 28. ATC cleared the aircraft to land with reported visibility of 2,000 meters and a trend decreasing to 1,500 meters, winds 280 degrees at 5 knots in light rain and runway surface weight. Here, he was referring to the Viper. Then the co-pilot selected the Vipers for landing. The Viper on the captain's side stopped working. The aircraft continued on ILS approach for runway 28 to the prescribed decision altitude and then carried out a missed approach as per company's standard operating procedures and not being able to sight the runway at minimums. Before commencing the ILS approach, the crew had taken clearance from ATC for a non-standard missed approach for a possible contingency due to cumulonimbus clouds all around the airport. So, the aircraft did not follow the prescribed missed approach procedure and was cleared to climb to 10,000 feet in coordination with ATC. The co-pilot completed the after-takeoff checklist while climbing through 3,800 feet. Thereafter, he sought the clearance from captain to again set up the FMC for ILS approach runway 28. Around the same time, a departing aircraft of Air India requested ATC for permission to depart from runway 10, although the runway in use was runway 28 owing to the prevailing winds. ATC accepted the request and immediately changed the active runway from 28 to runway 10. The DATCO then inquired from Flight 1344 whether they too would like to use runway 10 for arrival, which the captain accepted. The aircraft stopped climbing and leveled out at 7,000 feet. The crew again requested winds and visibility with the position of cumulonimbus clouds. ATC transmitted the weather as visibility 2,000 meters, winds 260 degrees at 5 knots, and cumulonimbus clouds all around the airfield at 2,500 feet. The aircraft reported established on localizer runway 10 and was clear to descend to 2,200 feet as the procedure. Then windshield wiper was switched on, but the speed of the wiper on captain's side was slower than the selected speed. They discussed landing flap selections and decided to go for flap 30 instead of flap 40 due to expected turbulence. At 500 feet above the ground level, the autopilot was disengaged while the auto throttle remained engaged. The pitch attitude was reduced and the descent rate began to increase, reaching 1,500 feet per minute. The approach soon became unstabilized, wherein the rate of descent and glide slope deviation increased beyond the stabilized approach criteria. The aircraft crossed the runway threshold at radio altitude of 92 feet and was moving left of center line with an actual tailwind component of slightly more than 14 knots and a crosswind component of 6 knots. There was no response from the captain. The plane touched down at 4,438 feet on the 8,858 feet long runway. The co-pilot immediately restored to max manual braking, overriding the auto brake selection. Auto speed brakes were fully deployed 1.2 seconds after touchdown, extending the spoilers. The thrust reversers were deployed 3 seconds after touchdown. The thrust reversers were stored back 2 times during the landing roll. The aircraft exited the designated end of the runway at a ground speed of 84.5 knots and then overshot the runway in safety area, broke the ILS antennae and the fans before plummeting down the tabletop runway. There was no post-accident fire. The impact caused the aircraft to separate into 3 sections and resulted in 21 fatalities, including both pilots. A Boeing 737 repatriating passengers from Dubai tried to land on runway 28 in inclement weather conditions. It goes around and changed the runway at the last moment, landed halfway down the runway, overshot the runway in safety area, broke the ILS antennae, and plummeted down the tabletop runway. So, why was the routine flight converted into a disaster? Let's all try to find out with the help of the investigation report. They were on the short final for runway 28. Visual contact with the leading lights was confirmed, but all of a sudden, the wiper on the captain's side stopped working. So, the crew initiated a go-around. Instead of doing a 360-degree go-around, the captain decided to land on runway 10 from the opposite direction. The standard operating procedures clearly stated that in this airport, after a second missed approach due to weather, the aircraft must divert to an alternate airport. This factor was important because this aircraft had already carried out one missed approach. With an unserviceable wiper, even the choice for alternate airfields in case of a second missed approach was restricted to only those airfields where it is not raining. On crossing the end of the touchdown zone, the captain continued with the long landing. Even after a clear go-around call where it was imperative on the part of the pilot flying to initiate a missed approach, he did not go around. On seeing no response from the captain, the co-pilot needed to take over the controls and initiate missed approach. The co-pilot did not take over the controls and did not initiate a missed approach when required to do so. The captain had a tendency to float on the runway. These are the adverse remarks related to safety concerns made by various trainers about the captain. You can pause the video if you want to check in more details. The crew did not discuss an alternate airport which was required in the case of a second missed approach. Maybe they didn't discuss it due to the unserviceability of the wiper on the captain's side. The investigation was done by Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, India. To sum it up, the probable cause was the captain, who was a pilot flying, failed to follow standard operating procedures. The captain continued an unstabilized approach and landed halfway down the runway. Even the first officer called for a go-around, the captain did not listen to him. They added that the first officer was failed to take over the controls and execute a go-around himself. This is all for now. Please don't forget to like and share this video with your friends and family. Subscribe to the channel for more aviation related videos. I will see you in the next video. This is Sunil saying thank you for watching. Stay safe and healthy.